Hey there, it's Teresa, and welcome to another conversation from my couch where you'll find me every Wednesday around 12:30 having a conversation from my couch about all things leadership. So, let's talk about a template for difficult conversations for your one-on-ones with that. So last week we talked about I gave you guys a simple template of how to have a one-on-one. Today we're going to talk about how do you do that if you're having a difficult conversation. So there are a lot of feels involved in difficult conversations. So the first thing I want you to do to combat a lot of those feels is to rehearse what you're going to say. It does not need to be a speech that you're giving somebody because it's a dialogue, one-on-one conversation. But what you need to do is to give yourself some time to practice, to understand, to say it out loud. When you practice, you need to speak it out loud because what it does is it imprints in our brains. It helps us to feel like we're a little bit more in control of the conversation and helps us to master some of those emotions if you get it out there. Or if you get lost, at least you can have something to fall back on. All right. Practice. That's my greatest hint. First things first, you want to have an introduction. Now, this introduction, again, when we do something personal back and forth to share, I want that to be no more than 2 minutes. And I say 2 minutes because what many of us do as leaders is to have all that personal conversation in avoidance of having the difficult conversation, all that sticky stuff that we don't like to deal with, right? So 2 minutes, set a timer in your mind. Maybe you do it on your phone, whatever else. I mean, like there's ways to go about doing it. So no more than 2 minutes because you really do need to take the time to speak to somebody when it's a difficult conversation and give both of you time to have input and to have time to breathe, right? So the first thing you want to do is you want to establish the objectives. So you can do that by saying, I wanted us to meet today to discuss subject A, B, or C. Now, you want to give them you want to give a common objective. So like you want to tell them something like, by the end of this meeting, I want us to have a solution. By the end of this meeting, I would like A, B, or C to happen. And then ask them as well, is there anything that you want out of this from me? Is there an outcome that you might need from me out of this conversation? It's a dialogue, right? Second thing is then that then you want to state your issues and you want to tell them about what the impact is. Now, one of the things I want to say is that this is another place where feelings get involved and you want to be very, very, very factual. You want to stay away from statements that are in the vein of, you always do blah, 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 blah. Or when I give you a project, you always do blah, 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 blah. Or it's never done on time. The way that you couch it is, if you want to bring up that difficult conversation, is you say, when I give you A, I observe B happening. So let's discuss that. If there's been an impact to the team or if there's been an impact to the organization, you also need to let them know. I gave you A to do in time limit B. That didn't get done and the result was C. Many times our teams don't know that we may not meet a deadline, but that deadline may impact something down the line. So we need to be clear about, number one, what the facts are, number two, what the impact was. Then after that, what we'd like to do is then to listen to your employee's perspective. Now, this is the place where you can ask great open-ended questions. So that means if you're hearing and do not interrupt, that's so important. What you want to do is to listen and then respond. So one thing that you can do is when there's a natural pause in the conversation, you can ask an open-ended question. And that's a time for you to use your good active listening skills. So I heard you say, blank happened. Can you tell me a little bit more about that to help you both uncover what your action items are, what's coming next. So then after that, the last thing you want to do is you want to wrap it up. So you want to check in. I heard you say that these 3 things are an issue. These are the next steps that we're going to take to ensure that this doesn't happen again. Is there anything else that you'd like to tell me or that you need for me to know? Again, you want to be checking in. You want to make sure that you're having a dialogue with the person and that they have ample time to also respond to what you're saying. These difficult conversations don't have to go on for hours. You can do this in about 35 minutes. So 2 minutes for introduction. You want to establish what's happening. That's probably 5 minutes. You want to establish the outcome, state, the facts and what the impact is. Probably another 10 minutes is going to be a good dialogue. You want to hear what your employee's perspective is. About 10 minutes for you guys to have a good conversation back and forth, asking those open-ended questions, and about 5 minutes for wrap-up action items. And it's very important that we do the wrap-up with the action items because we want to make sure that everybody is clear when they leave that conversation what is to come next. Expectations are set, and there is no ambiguity. There is no there's nothing opaque about it. Everybody is aware. When you do that and when you follow this template for a difficult conversation, it makes it easier to have that conversation because of the fact that you're having a dialogue and everybody is getting their needs met. You've asked the employee to contribute. You've contributed. Everybody has a chance to problem solve in it. So difficult conversations can be difficult. They are difficult. That's why they're called difficult conversations. But there is a way for you to combat it and to make it so that it is not so horrible. And one last thing, if you guys have never heard of the Oreo principle or the sandwich theory, remember, it's always great to start with something positive, get to the sticky situation in the middle, and then end with something positive. All right, guys. You guys have a great week. If you guys have anything that you want to say, you can find me on all social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. You can always DM me what you'd like to talk about next or see next, or if there's an issue that you want to discuss, you can always go to my website, send me an email from there. And my website, www.realsmartmethod.com. There's also a free leadership tool called the 4 Simple Steps to Coaching Your Team. I'm always here to help. And I'm so glad you guys are here. Have a great week. And I did learn from last week that my neighbor does mow his lawn every Wednesday at around 12:30. So, all right, guys, I will talk to you next week and catch you on the flip side. Peace.